We are going to continue now in a series that I left off on 3 weeks ago called Financial Freedom. Financial freedom. We started with the spiritual values of this. How does God want us to look at these things? How does God want us to master our money rather than be mastered by it? What does it look like to recognize that everything we have ultimately belongs to Him anyway? That freedom comes from the simple realization that everything I own belongs to my master. Those things will help us relate to our money better. They'll help us relate to our possessions in the right way, not as owners, but as managers. And we're going to get a little more practical this morning to talk about what that looks like. Because sometimes there's confusion in the body of Christ because we use terms that are used in Scripture, and we shouldn't be afraid of biblical language, but sometimes the language that comes through, even in our English translations, gets antiquated, and so there's some confusion about what it means. Specifically this word, the word steward. Who's heard that? And some of you immediately thought, well, I took a cruise to the Caribbean this summer. Wasn't that guy that cleaned my cabin? No, that's not what a steward is, at least not in this context. But people hear that word stewardship. Often in the church we speak of stewardship. Most of the time people either have no idea what it means, and so if you're not a follower of Jesus and you've come in here this morning, or you're questioning faith, or you're brand new to Christian faith, or haven't been to church in a while, and you go, yeah, that sounds familiar, but I don't know exactly what it means. Those of you who grew up in church hear that word, and it probably triggers some stuff in you. Maybe some not so good stuff. Every time a guy in my line of work got up and used the word steward or stewardship, you're like, oh, crap, he's about to ask for money, right? Or, oh, my gosh, don't we have enough buildings on this campus? Are we going to build something else? All right, that confusion comes from the way this word has often been associated with the wrong thing. What the Bible calls a steward is the same thing our culture is referring to when it uses the phrase asset manager. Okay, does that clear it up a little bit? How many of you have a banking account? Okay, almost everybody, so everybody else is using cash or crypto or something. Y'all must be expecting the apocalypse. All right, so you got a bank account. So when you go down to Truist, you go down to United, you go down to Jefferson City, you go down to the bank, any bank, local, whatever, and you deposit money into that account, what are they doing? They're managing your assets. Now, the reason they want your business is because they're going to use that money, they're going to invest, they're going to loan it out to other people, they're going to do a lot of different things with it, and in exchange for that, they're going to give you an interest rate. It's pretty pathetic, but they're going to give it to you, right? And so year after year, they're giving you that, and then they're using what you have given them, and then unless it's some kind of certificate of deposit or something that has a timeline on it, pretty much anytime you want, you should be able to go in and get it back out. Why is that? Because it's your money. It's your money, okay? And so same thing if you've got a 401k or you invest in the stock market, and most likely that unless you have a background in finance, most of us don't understand all of that well enough to do it on our own. And so you're probably like me. You don't do that on your own. You have an asset manager, an advisor, whatever you call that individual, and he or she has invested those things on your behalf. Now, they get a commission, probably, or a flat fee, however that works in the contract you sign with them. That's how they pay their mortgage and their bills. But it's understood from the beginning that the principal capital that you gave them never belongs to them. It belongs to you. So here's the question. Do you want that person to be good at what they do? The older I get, the more I want that person to be very good at what they do. Now, let's talk about it in this sense. Does it matter to you that anybody who handles money that you have entrusted to them be good at it? That's the point of what we're going to talk about today. Living in financial freedom means understanding my master is the Lord, not my financial possessions. It means everything I have isn't mine, but it's His, that I'm simply the asset manager. So my bank accounts, any automobiles, any real estate, any material possession I have belongs to Jesus. So here's another question. Don't you think it matters to God that if you're handling His assets, that you be good at it? Yeah, I think so. And I think conversely, there's a reality that many of us are not. Many of us are not. And if you don't believe me, if that offends you a little bit, just hang on. I'm going to give you some evidence of that in just a little bit. But we're going to look today at this really curious parable that actually has some shocking statements in it. Look at verse 8 of Luke chapter 16. It says, the master commended the dishonest manager for his shrewdness. For the sons of this world are more shrewd in dealing with their own generation than the sons of light. Now, if you've got a red letter edition Bible, what color are those words in? Red, yeah. That means Jesus spoke those words. That should have been a shock to your system. I mean, alarm bells, at least initially, should have gone off in your head. Like, he said, what? There's a commendation of someone who's ethically suspect? What is he doing here? What's the message he's trying to get across? And here's where we have to make some distinctions. First is the commendation doesn't come because he was dishonest. The dishonesty is not the thing that causes the result of the commendation. It's just the identification of who we're talking about here. The dishonest manager got commended. What he gets commended for is something called shrewdness. That means two things to you and me, or at least it should. Number one, it should give us hope that no matter who you are or what's in your past, there's forgiveness and there's a future and there's a hope. No matter what. Jesus can take whatever kind of mess you've made, whether it's with your money or with your marriage or whatever it might be. You know, I've always discovered you preach a message on money and somebody hears something about marriage, or they hear something about work, or they hear something, and then the number of times that people have come up to me and said, man, when I heard this, and I just kind of go, if you ever see me look like this? Yeah, that's code for, I didn't say that. I don't think I did. And then y'all make me neurotic. I go back and listen to the podcast. Well, no, I didn't say that. Boy, somebody else must have, though. Somebody else must have. Hear that this morning. There's hope. Whatever's in your past can be forgiven. You can get beyond it. You can come back from it. But it's also a challenge because of what this guy is commended for. Shrewdness. What does that mean? So here's our working definition of shrewdness, okay? It is to be marked by clever, discerning awareness and hard-headed depth of perception and discrimination. All right, so I have a friend named Tom Rogerston. He's retired now, but for years he was actually the chair of the pastoral psychology department at Loyola. And he has this thing that he calls spiritual bypass. He says when people, especially people of faith, they get to something and maybe there's a practical solution even right in front of their face, or maybe there's not. But even if there is, that path is hard. It involves making some hard decisions. It involves doing some hard things. They will commit what my friend Tom calls spiritual bypass. They'll say something syrupy like, well, God will take care of that, forgetting that oftentimes the way God takes care of stuff is through you and through me. Using the brain that he gave us, using the common sense that he's given us, and actually making good, sound decisions. And that oftentimes that can happen with money. You know, you got to stop spending so much, or you got to save a little bit more, or you need to be more generous, or whatever the issue is. Well, the Lord owns everything. That's right, including what's in your hip pocket. And where does that lead us? It leads us, everything is spiritual bypass leads to people making this, I regret to say, often accurate assumption about people of faith, that they are so heavenly minded that they are you've heard that, have you? So heavenly minded that they are no earthly good. Guys, the deficiency in that statement is a deficiency of shrewdness. The refusal to look at the hard things, to make the hard call, to do the right thing, to put into practice those things that really are right in front of us. There's a clear call in this parable for God's people to act with God's possessions, which he has given them to manage, with discerning awareness and depth of perception and discrimination. So whether you're talking about your family budget, whether we're talking about our church budget, which we're going to talk about right after the 11 o'clock service today. If you're a member, you should come. This is where you get your information. All y'all that love to tell me I don't ever know anything. Well, it's probably because you never show up. So show up about 11 o'clock, all right? Anybody watching online, you parachute drop in here about 8 weeks and you're griping because you don't know anything. Today would be a good day to actually show up. All right, I'm off my soapbox now. Y'all good? All right, here we go. Here we go. Church budget. National budget. Oh, now I'm meddling, aren't I? Look at these words in Matthew 10:16. Behold, I am sending you out as sheep in the midst of wolves. So be wise as serpents and innocent as doves. That second phrase helps check us against what we think we might read in Luke 16. What's being commended is not the dishonesty. You need to be innocent as doves. All right? You need to do right by people. You need to pay what you're owed. You need to use what the Old Testament calls rightly balanced scales. You don't need to cheat people. You don't need to do people wrong. You don't need to lie to people. But in the midst of that world that includes a lot of lying and a lot of cheating, don't it? Be wise as serpents. Wise as serpents. Be shrewd. Demonstrate some discrimination. Now, this has been my experience. So it may not be objectively true, but I'm just telling you from my experience, and I've been doing this a while, a little over 3 decades now, almost inevitably, when someone sits in my office and their primary concern is money, inevitably, they think they don't have enough, but they really do. They think they don't have enough, but really their issue isn't, it's just bad money management. And then what has to happen, which just so you know, this is a little bit different than if you're sitting in my office, okay? This is the fun part. I get to yell at you and just go home, right? But when we're sitting in the office, I actually do listen. I want to hear your story. I want to demonstrate compassion. I want to suffer with you. I want to walk through. I really do have that kind of heart, guys. I love you, and I want good for you. But part of that listening is so that both of us together can kind of get to the heart of what the real problem is. And I'm just telling you, almost 100 times out of 100, when the issue is money struggles, the person just assumes that even though I have managed things badly, what I need is more stuff to manage badly, and then everything will be okay. And that's just not true. We see it in the parables. This rich man that we looked at a few weeks ago, he had more money than anybody in this room. I don't care how wealthy you are. He had more than enough, and he still didn't have enough. Still didn't have enough. I just read an article in the Washington Post this morning. Man, I shouldn't have done that. Eating my breakfast, and one line in that article caught me. I did not realize this, okay? We are now $40 trillion in debt. Okay, now let that sit with you for a minute. That is nation toppling. All right? I know some of y'all are all into eschatology and into the world apocalypse crap, so you'll love this, right? But get on something real, right? Now, and all this tribal conspiracy and everything, what's going to end a country is that. That's what's going to bring it down. Foolishness. Now, why am I bringing that up in a message like this? Because we are the wealthiest collective nation of people that's ever existed in all of human history. How in the devil are we $40 trillion in debt? I don't think it's because we don't have enough. I think it's because there are some people, and I won't call no names, okay, who have badly managed what we have, and we keep sending them back because they have convinced us that the problem is on the other side. And we're like, y'all both spending and managing like a sailor drunk on its Friday paycheck. This is where we are. 340 million people collectively have not managed it well. I've discovered that is true sometimes on a church level. I thank God that's not true here. Sometimes on a family budget level. Some speak about money. Some people in my line of work, you speak a lot about money, and they push it really hard. But it's not just, hey, guys, here's what we're going to do. That's what you're going to hear this afternoon. Here's what we want to do together. Here's where we want to get by 2029. In order for that to happen, here's where we need to get by 2027. And here's what that's going to cost. And here's what that kind of looks like per household. And we're going to ask you to join us in that. God, that's just fundraising 101. That's just sharing with you the vision of what our leaders, about 40 of them, have put together, the plan for the next 3 to 5 years and where God wants us to go. Okay? But a lot of guys, it's not put in that light. It's expressed like we just don't have enough. Who's heard the televangelists say, yeah, if we don't meet this goal by midnight tonight, we're going to have to go off of 14 stations that we're on right now. And can you imagine the number of people that are going to go to hell because you don't give? That's guilt. Where does guilt come from? Guilt comes from a poverty mentality. It comes from a scarcity mentality that says we don't have enough. Probably because they don't manage it very well. If you want to stay on TV, don't buy a stinking private jet. I'm just going to throw that out there, okay? Every bit of that is a failure to understand what all of this looks like, okay? And again, it's why you should show up at business meetings, so you know what's going on. Listen, I know some of you would rather stick a lit cigarette in your eye than be here this afternoon. I'm running the thing, and a part of me doesn't want to be here. But I'm going to tell you, that's the venue. That's the place where we get the information, where we see where we're going, where we get the comprehensive picture. You know why? Because we've got leaders here, thank God, from our elders to our finance team, to the long-range planning team that's been hard at work these last 6 months to unfold a plan that I'm going to get to share with you this afternoon. All of that stuff. And you know what I've discovered about every one of those people that I thank God for? They're shrewd. They're shrewd. They're generous, but they're shrewd. Those two not only are not mutually exclusive, they belong together. So here's what I want you to see this morning as we move through this story. 4 postures that are needed for you to actually be good with your master's money. Okay? Now, if you want the details of that, well, wait a minute, I need to know how to get everything back in balance. I need to know how to get out of debt. I need to know how I'm going to fund him. And my kid just came out of diapers and I'm starting to think about college. Good thinking, good thinking. But I don't know how to do that. Okay, well, we got classes all over the place for that. We're big Dave Ramsey fans around here. Okay, financial peace is offered at least a couple of times a year. Keep watch on that and you'll get some help. You'll get the help that you need, the practical level help. But I'm here to tell you this morning, none of that's going to do you any good if you do not enter into all of that with these 4 postures. Number 1, thankfulness. Thankfulness. Verse 1. He also said to the disciples, there was a rich man who had a manager. And charges were brought to him that this man was wasting his possessions. And he called him and said to him, what is this I hear about you? Turn in the account of your management, for you can no longer be a manager. Okay? We could really express all of this in 2 words. You're fired. Yeah. So this starts with job loss for cause. That's what's happening. Why? Because he was wasting the resources that have been given to him. Employees, buckle up. Okay? Are you ready for this? I love you, but this might sting a little bit. How many people am I talking to right now, either in this room or on the other side of that camera, and you waste your employer's resources? You are, okay, listen, this could be misconstrued. I don't want to. Everybody's created in the image of God. Everybody has inestimable value. Your value is not in, your inherent value is not in what you do. It is in who you are as a child of God. Every bit of that is true, and every bit of that can be true, and at the same time, you can go to work and be a waste of space. Okay? Those can both be true. So who am I aiming at in here? I don't know. Don't look at your neighbor. Don't do that. But are you that guy? Office opens at 9. You get there at 9:02. Every day, just like clockwork. I don't know. Maybe it's so you can make some kind of statement. I don't know. You leave early. You cheat on your time card. You take office supplies. You stir dissension in the office, division in the office. You write every time you come in, you ratchet up the gossip. You leave the hardest work in the factory to somebody else. Or if it's work that's got to be done outdoors, like, hey, where's Jim? I don't know where Jim. If anybody's named Jim, I'm just using that name, okay? Like, where'd he go? I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, you're that guy. We had a guy named Tommy. I work for a plant. Who uses Dow bathroom cleaner in here? Wow, nobody. All right, maybe this is why I don't have a job there anymore. Okay, so I work for that company. before I got into ministry. I was studying electrical engineering, and I was actually a co-op student working for that company, and there was a guy named Tommy. And man, every time I saw Tommy, two things were true about him. He had a great big smile, big, gregarious, friendly. I mean, he was just a guy you'd love to be around after work, right? But during work, same way. Great big smile. The other thing about Tommy, he was always on the move. Like he was always like, how you doing? How you doing? All right. And a few months later, it hit us. Some of us were sitting in the break room like we've never seen Tommy fix anything. And we came to the conclusion, I think Tommy clocks in and gets 8 hours of exercise. But because he's a friendly guy, everybody just kind of lets it go. And like it's just nothing ever got done. All right. Pastor Joel, what are you getting at? Don't be like Tommy. That's what I'm getting at. All right. Don't be that person. Much of what I'm talking about probably described this man. He was dishonest. He was foolish. He was unproductive. Our staff will be able to tell you that there are three things I want out of our staff. Number one is high character. All right. We are entrusted with the souls of men and women. We are entrusted with your stories. We are entrusted to walk with you through things that require measures of confidentiality that should be guarded, which is why a cardinal sin on the covenant staff is gossip. We will fire you for that, and we have. We put that policy in place about 8 years ago, and it took about a month before I actually had to act on it, and I guess the rest of the staff figured, oh, crap, he's serious. And so, yeah, you got to be of high character. Number two, high commitment, because we're not just here for your department. Yeah, well, all I want to do is this. Yeah, well, there's a bigger mission here, and we're all a team. We got to be a part of that. And third is high competency. You've got to get the job done. This guy failed all three tests miserably. So while it's a shock to the system for this parable to start with, you're fired, it kind of makes sense, doesn't it? It kind of makes sense. And so he says to himself, following in verse 3, what shall I do? Asking that question a little late, aren't you, buddy? What shall I do? Since my master is taking the management away from me, I am not strong enough to dig, and I am ashamed to beg. Many of you know I worked for a large denomination for 11 years, and one of the first times that I ever had to terminate a field missionary. And I don't like doing stuff like that, but even my higher-ups were like, yeah, he needs to be gone by the end of the week. You're his direct report. You go take care of this. And so I met with him. Guys, people give generously to churches. Those churches give generously to denominations and mission boards and agencies, and they kind of expect the people that are on the payroll of those agencies will actually share Jesus with other people and plant churches, and this guy was doing a grand total of zero. And so I met with him. We laid everything out. I was nicer than I was just then, okay? I was more compassionate and calm. But I said, we'll call him Jeff. I said, Jeff, this isn't working. I said, we're going to have to end this relationship. I said, we're going to pay you for 30 days to give you some opportunity to figure out what's next. But this meeting is just to let you know that we're done here. And here's how I knew in a nanosecond that we had made the right decision. Because his reflexive response was his eyes got like deer in a headlight, like wide, and he looked back at me and he said, how am I going to pay my rent? That's this guy. Every time I read this story, I think about that guy. And I think about my response. I'm like, I don't know, buddy, but your name's on the lease, not mine. So that's kind of like your problem. I don't know. But we're going to give you 30 days to try to figure that out, okay? Every time I think about this story, I think about that story. You know what was missing in this entire equation? Thankfulness. In my experience, people don't have to be unemployed very long before they start to be thankful about the thing they lost, thankful about the thing they used to daily complain about, thankful about the thing in which they were sometimes the thorn in the side of others. I mean, even the most competent person will lose their commitment if that keeps going, if that posture is not there, and then character slowly follows behind. I've seen it happen to guys in my line of work. They get tired or things get hard, as they do in pastoral ministry. I'm sympathetic to that. I've been through it. But then they start looking for well, I could be somewhere else other than here. Well, yeah, you could also be unemployed. Business people who want a better portfolio, even church volunteers. My ministry's not getting enough attention, or spouses who want a better husband, better wife, and they think they've found one at work. Ooh. Eventually they lose what they do have, and then they're going to say like this man, what shall I do? What do I do now? I didn't realize what I had. So posture number one is thankfulness. Some of you need to go to work tomorrow, find your direct report, and issue a profound apology. I don't know who I'm talking to, but in a crowd this large, added to a crowd maybe 3 or 4 times that size on the other side of this camera, I know I'm talking to somebody. I know I'm talking to more than one somebody. If you are a follower of Jesus, you be thankful for that job. You be thankful for that role. You be thankful for the opportunity to contribute to something higher. Here's the second thing you need, intentionality. Verse 4, he says, I have decided what to do so that when I am removed from management, people may receive me into their houses. Okay, what's happening here? His circumstances have forced him, okay? So as long as he was in his prior situation, he could just waste time, waste money, waste resources, everything. But now he's been taken outside of that, and he is in what we call a fish or cut bait situation. Know what I'm saying? Yeah, we got lots of metaphors for this, and they spread around the globe. There's a Hindi expression. It says, clouds that produce only lightning and thunder give no water. Where's the water coming from? Or as my daddy used to tell me, it's a little more crude, but it still gets the point across. Boy, poop or get off the pot. Right? It's one of these things, like it's time to do something. It's time to figure out what I'm going to do. And God, this is another critical error that I've seen people make when it comes to mastering money. And I just go, what's your plan? Okay, you're in debt. Yeah, my wife and I have made that mistake before. We got into consumer debt early in our marriage. Thank God it happened early in our marriage, and we realized how potentially crippling that could be. But okay, you got some problems. Hey, what's your plan for getting out? I got this worn out car, man. It's just like, I think it's running on 3 out of 4 cylinders, and like the tires are bald, and I don't have money, and I got to get to work, and like if I can't drive, I can't get to work, and I don't know what to do. Okay, what's your plan? Let's talk about the plan. Well, I got this really cool pair of sneakers I've been looking at the mall. Yeah, that ain't going to help you. It's not. This story illustrates God's expectations that we be intentional. Listen, how you invest, how you spend, how you give your money, your presence, even your time. It's all about discipline. Every bit about it. It's the workaholic who can't get everything done in less than 80 hours a week suffers from the same problem as the sloth who dares not work 1 second more than 40. It's a lack of discipline. It's a lack of discipline. It's either a love of 6 days or it's a love of Sabbath. It is not a love of all 7 days. It is not an embrace of the life that God has given us. Now, let that trickle down into money. What's the bottom line? How intentional are you about this? You walk out of here today, yeah, we got to do something. We got to have a plan. All right, well, here's financial peace. Here's the Ron Blue thing. Maybe there's some other place you find something better. And you're like, okay, that's the thing. And then 6 months from now, we come back, hey, how's that going? Oh, we never got signed up. Yeah, what happened? Well, in the middle of planning that next trip to Disney, intentional. Thankfulness, intentionality. Here's the third one. Follow through. Follow through. Verse 5. So summoning his master's debtors one by one, he said to the first, how much do you owe my master? And he said, 100 measures of oil. He said, take your bill and sit down quickly and write 50. He said to another, how much do you owe? And he said, 100 measures of wheat. And he said to him, take your bill and write 80. Now, the details of what's actually going on are a little fuzzy here. You read some scholars, some of the literature says that the size of what is owed by these other clients, because he's not just in his wasting of his manager's money and his dishonesty, he actually hasn't even served the clients well. And so they have this huge debt that's actually unpayable, and lowering that debt actually makes it more possible that the owner might actually get something rather than nothing. Okay? If you've ever been to a fire sale for a business that's gone out of business, something along those lines. There are others who say, well, no, actually what he's reducing is his own personal commission. But either way, what he's doing is he's anticipating his financial needs going forward, and he's thinking to himself, while I'm in this situation, I need to forge some good relationships with people right here at the end. Maybe those clients will show me favor. It will ingratiate me to them as well as my former boss, who maybe figured he wasn't going to get paid. Now he's going to get paid a little something. Follow through. Who suffers, don't hold your hand up, don't elbow your spouse. Who suffers from a lack of follow through? Okay? This is where the Bob Newhart comes out in me. Stop it. Okay? Well, I'm just not good at that. Well, get good at it. Get good at it. Guys, there's too much on the line. Okay? And this works out in the professional way. Listen, I've taught my children, if you're in an interview process and they don't even so much as call you back when they say they're going to, drop them. That's not a company you want to work for. That's unprofessional. And just so you'll know, yeah, that works both ways. Some of the angriest I've ever been is when I've chewed out search committees looking for a pastor. My second book was written to teams that were searching for a guy like me for a church, and the book describes the 5 biggest mistakes I've ever seen them make, and the number of times that I've been on the call with the church looking and with the candidates, and a guy calls me and he says, hey, they told me like 2 months ago they were going to get back with me next week, and I have to be the one to tell him that they hired somebody else. Unprofessional, unethical, and if you're a follower of Jesus, sinful. Follow through. Do what you said you were going to do. Get things done. God, this is simple execution. I'm going to keep the commitment that I've made. Thankfulness, intentionality, follow through, all that adds up to faithfulness. Verse 10, one who is faithful in very little is also faithful in much. And one who is dishonest in very little is also dishonest in much. If you then have not been faithful in unrighteous wealth, that is the temporary riches of this world, who will entrust to you the true riches? And if you have not been faithful in that which is another's, who will give you that which is your own? All right? The road to financial freedom doesn't start with, I just need more of the thing I'm managing badly. It starts with faithfulness with what he's already given me. Okay? If you spend foolishly now, how much more? I mean, some of y'all, Jeff Foxworthy used to say, you know, the definition of a redneck retirement plan is winning the lottery. Well, if that's anywhere near your retirement plan, that just demonstrates why God's never let you going to win, other than the fact that you shouldn't be playing the lottery. And I'll deal with that later in another message. I know that just made a bunch of you mad. The biggest Ponzi scheme, poor tax that government ever put on people, and we just go buy it. But that's it. Like, you're waiting to win it. Well, if you spend foolishly now, how big of a fool you think you're going to make out of yourself when you win the jackpot? You think the behavior's going to change because you get more stuff to mismanage? This is Jesus' point. Here's a hot one. He's like, we're going to give eventually, but we don't have the money right now. Now, I'm not getting into percentages. We're not a law-based church here. I'm going to get into that in a couple of weeks when we actually talk about giving. Okay? The churches that, yeah, well, you're giving 8.5, but if you don't get to 10, you're going to hell. We don't believe that here. Okay? That's not where I'm going. But the issue is, if you're not charitable now, at what point are you going to be charitable? We came to a conclusion last year. We did our taxes for 2024 in 2025. And what I'm going to tell you, it might sound a little bit. I don't want to. The last thing I want to do is come across like I'm trying to brag. In fact, I'm just going to tell you, at 32 years, I'm the tightwad. My wife is the generous one. Okay. Now that doesn't mean she's an idiot. She's very discriminating about where she gives, but she will give the lot. I mean, she's just an incredibly generous woman. So she's the reason that what I'm about to tell you happened, not me. Okay. We did our taxes, part of that's charitable deduction. And when we added it all up, it just was like, oh my gosh. Now it's been 32 years, so factor in inflation and all of that. But what we had been allowed by God to give away, first to our church family, because we invest back into this body that we love so much, to other church planters and missionaries and organizations that we believe in and we support their work here and around the world. And it added up to an amount that exceeded, okay, the amount we gave away in year 32 exceeded the total amount that both of us had earned in year 1. And we were just blown away by that. And let me tell you why we were thanking God for that. It's because in year 1, Tightwad Joel is going, hey, I'm a seminary student. We ain't got nothing. I'm talking, listen, John Lennon was wrong. All you need is not love. You at least need a can of pork and beans, right? And we were pushing through, and it was Mrs. Rainey that said, honey, we have to be faithful to God. And for us, again, not putting this on anybody else, but for us, our own personal life, that means living off of 90% of whatever we take in. That's what it means, at a minimum. So you want to know why we were able to celebrate in year 32? Because it started guys, if it never started in year 1, it would have never happened in year 32. Would have never happened. Again, we're not a law-based church. I'm not prescribing that percentage for you. And if you're one of these legalistic types, like, what are you doing? I'll get to that. Give me a couple weeks. We're going to talk about giving. But the key to financial freedom is being faithful with what you have right now, not what you're going to have in 2027. And here's why. This is where we conclude. Verse 13, no servant can serve two masters. He will either hate the one and love the other, or he will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and money. We've read this before, haven't we, guys? Yeah. Now, the last week we're together on this, I'm going to teach about those biblical principles of giving. Here's what I'm going to tell you. Because everything we have belongs to Him, He expects your recognition of that through the first fruits of what you have coming back to Him. Okay? We're not prescribing a percentage, but we are saying this. The spirit of that is not whatever we have that's left over after we've done A, B, and C. It's the first thing that comes right off the top. Okay? Because there's a recognition of everything that God has given. And here's what Amy and I have learned. That kind of generosity is one of the best tools we ever had in our toolbox that God put there to teach us fiscal discipline. One of the best. One of the best. And that's what He may be calling some of you to. Okay? Too many of God's people live in financial bondage because nobody taught them to be proactive. Nobody taught them to have a plan. Nobody taught them to be shrewd. Nobody taught them to be faithful. Too many churches live in bondage. This one did for years. Insurmountable, at that point, debt. Because we failed to share God's vision of what we're capable of when our resources are combined. There is still so much unrealized potential right in front of me. Our homes, our church, everywhere. If we'll just be faithful in our generosity. And here's the result. Verse 8. For the sons of this world are more shrewd in dealing with their own generation than the sons of light. And I tell you the truth, make friends for yourselves by means of unrighteous wealth. Jesus just told His disciples, the pagans in this world are more shrewd than you. And that's not a compliment. Okay? Y'all are dumb with money and you act like it's a spiritual gift. And I'm telling you it's not. That's spiritual bypass. Use the temporary resources God has given you, whatever you have, okay? How are you using it? Who got here today in a car, a truck, an SUV? All right, everybody walked. Like, yeah, man, y'all are dead this morning. Who got here in a vehicle of some sort, 2 wheels or 4? For how many people? I won't ask you to raise your hands because you're lazy this morning. That's okay. I love you anyway. There was an empty seat on your way. You know, there's a butt that could have been in that seat that belonged to a person, and somebody that you know, a neighbor that you don't just say, hey, come join us at Covenant one day. Hey, I'll pick you up. I'll pick you up. If you got teenagers, who's got teens in here? How many empty seats were on your way here Wednesday night when it kicked off? Who's got a house that they live in? Wow, that's a lot of homeless people. All right, here you go. Who are the guests you have and entertain and love and have fun with who need to know of Jesus? Who's got time? This is where everybody goes, no, you have 168 hours every week just like the rest of us. The question is, where are you going to spend it? What you have right now is God's provision to get you where you want to go next. And it's enough. Make friends by means of unrighteous wealth in exchange for eternal. Choose your master. Acknowledge that everything belongs to that master. And then utilize everything he's given you in a way that leverages those resources toward eternal reward. Guys, if we lived that way, it would change everything. How we handle our finances, how we get out of debt, how we deal with spending habits, our saving habits, our giving habits, every bit of that, because we would be free to invest in the eternal in every way. And let me tell you, we haven't even begun to imagine the return on investment that comes when this happens. What you have is enough because God has given it to you, and he is enough. And for some of you, maybe that's the real issue. You haven't recognized yet that Jesus is enough. What we just celebrated around this table demonstrates that. He paid the greatest debt you would ever owe and could not have ever paid. Money struggles are so often a symptom of a problem that's deeper because you've never met the one who paid your ultimate debt. Today you can. Let's bow together. Father, as our elders and deacons begin to gather around the crosses, as we begin to prepare for ways in which we're going to respond to you, I know this has been an earthy, gritty kind of message. Lord, I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful that Scripture doesn't commit spiritual bypass. Scripture doesn't get syrupy. Scripture doesn't try to sanitize everything. And Lord, for those of us living in the mud and the muck of the real world, that is such a comfort. You, the eternal God, meet us there. And so, Lord, there's a lot of decisions that need to be made, some resolutions that need to be made, some commitments that need to be made. I don't know what they are. But may your Spirit move mightily in these next few moments. And may you change lives as a result. In Jesus' name. And God's people said, amen.